Numbers 27 to 31, back in Genesis 12, when we started this story of God choosing Abraham. Of course, in 12:3, he gave him the promise that in him, Abraham, and his family, the big picture would be that all the nations of the earth would be blessed through him. So it comes as a surprise to us in today's reading in 31:17, and this is one sample of other texts that do this. We are told that Israel is to kill all the inhabitants of Canaan once they get into town. And this is just a partial description of that. We will have, and we've had actually descriptions back in Leviticus 26, Numbers 14, Numbers 21, and coming up in Deuteronomy 20, even a more careful explanation. It is shocking to our system and shocking to us as Christians who try to take this text and apply it. Here we go to that same question. How do we apply this to our life as Christians? And we'll have to deal with this as we go, but let's use this time to talk about it now. First of all, I think we should remember that this is a very spiritual battle, and I mean that in the most strict sense of the use of that term. Back in Genesis 6, God destroyed the world through a flood because of a spiritual worship problem. They were somehow mixing with these divine beings had come down to earth and done something that's not really described very carefully, but we can tell there was some kind of true spiritual battle that was being waged here. And God does describe these people in numerous texts to come as worshiping other spirits, real spirits who are very dangerous. And God does not want Israel, as they cross the Jordan, to have anything to do with this kind of poor worship. Secondly, I think this gets into our story again of our illustration of how to think in terms of applying something to our own life. Remember how I used the illustration of a play and we're standing in the back with our own lines ready to come on stage. This would be a good example of lines that are not ours. This is their time, their situation, their dealings with certain people, that I don't think we need to even wonder how to apply it. I just don't. This is not my line. This is not our lines at this time. This is between them and God, the writer of the script of this period. And so I leave it there. Now, what I'm waiting for, of course, and let's be honest about this, in how our story will progress, Jesus himself will enter our story and will describe how to act in his day. It will not sound like this at all. It is not the job, Jesus will say, for his disciples to kill those who don't believe, not at all. However, and this is how we should end our discussion here at least, remember that our lines to come, though they are not their lines, and this doesn't solve the problem, but it just kind of sets the table. Remember, Jesus does talk of punishment to come. He's very explicit about this in Matthew 24 and 25. In fact, if we want to read the most probably vicious language of all the Bible, it would be Revelation 19 and 20, when Jesus is depicted coming back as a conqueror who will destroy those who do not believe. So this kind of spiritual language that is part of this difficult story back in Numbers does recur. And again, so this doesn't solve the question, but it simply sets it up for us later. There may be a time in our life that God will give us our script and we will have those lines to read again. So let's watch for that as we continue to work through our story.